Good morning, this is Rebecca and it's RLJ Perspective. Today we're going to talk a little bit about homework. I know a lot of people hate homework. Parents complain about it, teachers complain about having to grade it, kids despise it. People complain constantly about the time that it takes to do homework and the type of homework that a teacher sends home. But today we're going to talk about the good part of homework, because I think that homework can be a good thing. When I was a kid, you went home from school at the end of the day, somebody was there. I mean, I had a babysitter most of the time, but somebody would be there, and the first thing that you did was get a snack because you were starving, because you didn't eat the school lunch. And school lunches were good, but most kids didn't eat. And then after your snack, you would do homework. And the homework varied from, writing spelling words or reading a book or worksheets, which we'll talk about worksheets later on this year. But you did various things, and really it was just about practice. Now, parents nowadays, they complain about time spent. They don't have time for homework. They get home and they barely have time to eat and get everything done, bath, practice for sports, all of that. But nobody ever really looks at the quality that is missed when homework is being done. If you set your children around your table while they were doing their homework and you're cooking, there's a lot of conversation that can happen. Kids that are older can help the younger ones. Homework gets done by the kids, not by the parents, because that's probably why teachers hate grading homework so much, is because they know that they're pretty much grading what the parent did. I mean, I have little kids that I substitute in their classrooms, and they'll say to me, I just want to take this home because I can do it better when my mom helps me. Well, that's because most of the time parents are giving children the answers, or they're helping them to the point where the child really doesn't have to think. And so parents don't do that. Let's start there. But teachers don't like grading homework when they're grading the parent instead of the student. And trust me, we teachers can tell, because the homework quality is better than the quality that we get when they're doing their work at school. So we can tell when a parent's doing it. But anyway, if your children are doing their homework at the table and you're cooking dinner, you're all there at the same time. You can talk with one another, you can talk about the schoolwork, and the homework gets done. Now, I know one thing about homework that makes it really difficult for a lot of parents is the fact that the homework is harder in a lot of ways than what we did when we were in grade school. And when I say we, I guess I'm lumping myself in with those 30-somethings that are doing homework now, because all my kids are grown and most of my grandchildren are teenagers. But really, what I'm talking about is schoolwork is harder. They've changed the techniques that we use to do certain things like math and science and social studies and language arts. Math probably being the hardest. But those things have been adapted and adopted because it's supposed to be better for the student, better for all students. Now, I know when I learned how to do math was 2 plus 2 is 4, and you just learned it and you memorized it and you remembered it. But that's not enough anymore. We need for children to understand that 2 plus 2 is 4, and that taking 2 apples and 2 oranges isn't just 4. It's 2 apples and 2 oranges. They need to learn how to apply it to something other than just memorizing 2 numbers. And so the best way is for parents to get on board. At the end of last year, we talked a little bit about getting on board with your teachers. Trust me, if they can teach a second grader to do the math the way that they want it done now, then we as parents and grandparents, we can do it too. So we just have to get on board. And if you're allowing time for your child to play in a sport, but you're not allowing time for your child to do homework, you're preparing your child for failure. Most of our children are not going to need to know how to play basketball when they're 30, but they're going to have to know how to read. And trust me, when they're 20 years old and they know that you helped them to play basketball, but you did not help them to learn how to read, they're not going to blame the teacher. They're going to blame the parent. And they're going to say, well, you let me be in basketball, but you didn't help me with my homework. Now, why would I say that? Well, I'll tell you a quick story. My husband spent most of his life thinking he was dumb. His parents helped him to be in the band, and man, he was a heck of a trumpet player, and he played in the band at Kempsville in Virginia. He loved it. He has so many wonderful, wonderful stories and so much fun and time spent, and his parents drove trucks dragging trailers behind them, and his aunts and uncles, they're all involved in the band, and one aunt and one uncle actually were band instructors, and so it was a very big part of his life. The problem was my husband was not made to do schoolwork, and so it wasn't until he was in his 40s and he was met with not going to be able to keep a job because they wanted degrees. My husband decided to give college a try. He graduated from high school, but he was probably at the bottom of the list. But it wasn't until he was in his 40s that he went to college, and when he went to college, he discovered something. He didn't read so well. And he did math, but he didn't do big math. He just did the basic math. And he didn't have any true memory of doing homework or schoolwork because most of his time was spent in school focusing on band. Now, I think band is great. I think art's great, drama, all the sports. I think they're wonderful. But if we as parents don't get on board with teachers and start training our children to recognize the importance of education, they're going to miss the boat. My sons love to play soccer. They are no soccer players. They just played soccer. They are not David Beckham, and they're not ever going to be him. They just like to play. But my husband and I, we pushed school. We pushed homework. We stressed it. And both of our kids, our boys, have done well. They've went to college, and they've done well. But let me tell you something. If I had went the flip side and focused more on Cub Scouts, which they also were really good at, and soccer, which they were pretty good at, if I had focused on those things, my boys would never have learned how to read well. It's just a really sad situation that we've put ourselves in when we start focusing on sports and all of the extracurriculars instead of focusing on education. Put your children's education at the forefront. Do their homework with them, but make them do the work. And if they don't understand how to do it, don't do it quickly just to get it done. It's not enough. Your kids know when you're doing their homework for them, and when they're older, they're going to resent you. They won't do it for a while, but later on they will. And the biggest thing is that when you do their homework for them, they learn how to lie. They go to school and they tell their teacher that they did it, but they didn't do it. And that makes them lying and you lying. I'm all about public education. I know I homeschooled my youngest, but I'm all about public education. But the one thing I can tell you is that the only way that your children are ever going to succeed in the world that we're moving into is if they can learn how to read, if they can do math, if they can do science, and if they can find bigger, better careers than just playing basketball or doing a sport. You have a nice day.